Hi, welcome to another Play Talk. Today I have someone very special here with us, and this is Kristen Peterson. I am thrilled to have you here. Kristen, whenever I start these Play Talks, I always like to start with the story behind the scenes on how we met.
Yeah.
So basically, it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago when we were starting our accounts, and I found someone who thought the same way that I did. And somewhere in the middle, you just blasted and took off, and now you're super famous with thousands of followers. And I continue to be a huge supporter, and I've seen Kristen grow and create all these amazing products and all this amazing work. It's more than products because it's more of a movement towards play. I think that we belong to a new generation of professionals
Mm.
fighting for more play during childhood. So welcome,
Childhood. Yes.
Kristen. Welcome. Can you tell
Thanks
us
for
a little
having
bit about
me.
yourself?
All right. So I am the retired founder of a play and nature based preschool in Minnesota. And my current work right now takes me around the world to speak to lots of early childhood professionals about the necessity of play in early childhood. So that is what I do now. And I create content online for Instagram and make digital courses. And I'm a podcaster and all the things. But really, what my message boils down to is that children need play and we need to do a lot of unlearning as adults in order to be able to provide those play opportunities for children.
As I was waiting for you, I read your today's email, and
Yeah.
when I opened it, I couldn't believe that you started this movement because of Lisa Murphy,
Uh-huh.
and I started this movement because I read her book. So I think I was so random,
Wow.
yeah, so random, and I think that Lisa is an amazing professional. She
Yeah.
we continue to learn from her. She's amazing, and her message has been strong and powerful.
Yeah.
And when we started a couple of years ago, play has been around forever, of course, but
Yeah.
this movement towards play has gotten stronger and stronger, and that's amazing. I think that and that's why I liked calling this session, Is It a Trend? Because I hope it's a trend. But let's talk a little bit about that, Kristen. Let's talk about the movement, how it has grown, why are early childhood centers moving towards play based learning little by little. And I always like to say that play is the way that we are rethinking education for
Yeah.
the 21st century, even though we are already a quarter of a century into the 21st century. So let's talk about the start of this movement.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't really know. Like, I came into the play world 12 years ago, probably. So at that point in time, there was already a play movement started. I just didn't know it. So it's been, I think that there's always been pockets of people who know what is developmentally appropriate for young children and are fighting for it. The problem is that we have such a huge industrialized educational system that most of us grew up in, and that is all we know. And so we don't, I always say this and it sounds kind of confusing, but we don't know what we don't know until we know it,
I
right?
know.
So like we didn't know growing up in those environments of like really top down teacher directed industrialized settings that was not developmentally appropriate for many people in those situations. So I think when people come to realize that, like, hey, I've started to dive into the research and I'm seeing the research all points to this one thing, which is play. And we're not really doing that. I think once you kind of like connect those two dots, you start to feel like, what are we doing then? And I think that that's what inspired me. So Lisa Murphy, I heard her talk. She was talking a lot about like the research that backs all of this. And I'm like, well, why are we doing traditional crap if it's not developmentally appropriate? Like, where is this coming from? But it's because I didn't know. It was all I had been taught. It was what I was taught in college. It was what I was taught when I was doing my practicums and my student teaching in classrooms. Like it all led back to like this traditional industrialized model. And it takes a lot of unlearning and like breaking up with and undoing in order to like rethink, rethink differently about what education can look like in early childhood and for all people, really. So I think that the movement's been around a long time, but I think it's just becoming more pronounced with social media. You see it a lot more in social media circles and because of Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. But also there is still so much out there that's geared towards like the traditional top-down method of teaching where worksheets are like a daily thing. And I hope that play-based learning is not a trend, because a trend is something that happens for a while and then fades off. And then will happen again in 20 years and then fades off. So like I think of a trend as like a fashion trend. Like right now, like this t-shirt, this exact t-shirt I'm wearing, I wore when I was in college. Like not this style. Like it was in style when I was 19 and it is now in style again when I'm 44. So that's like a trend. It went off for a while and now it's back. I don't want that to happen to play. I want play to continue to be a movement, but I would like to see it be the baseline. Like everybody understands play, but play isn't understood well because we think it's the fun after the learning has happened, or we think something is just because we think play is like a game. It has to be something fun. Like if I create this fun project that I found on Pinterest, that's paper plate penguins that all look the same, that's fun. It's play. So we're learning. But that's not the case. Play is so much more multifaceted than that. And it's also so simple. Play is self-directed, it's self-chosen, it's intrinsic, it's about the process and not about the end product. And so if we can kind of peel back everything that we put into our early childhood spaces or in our educational spaces, we can kind of see that most of what we do, even if it's fun, isn't really play. Even if it's a game, that's not really play. If children aren't being able to have like the choice to be able to do something.
I totally agree. And I think that we have been living a change in the recent years, and thankfully because of the pandemic. One of the only good things that happened with the pandemic was that we started to speak to others through social media. And I think that you're completely right, and that's where we mark, because we have amazing professionals like Sally Hoey, like Peter Gray, like Lisa Murphy, that have been doing this for years. They are like troopers and they've been spreading the word, but you were only lucky to get that word from them if you read their books or if you attended to a conference. Right now with social media, you have access to more information to start getting uncomfortable. As I say, the more uncomfortable you get, the better, because then you know that it's time to change and time to do something different. And I had I participated in her podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I'm gonna let you. I'll drop the link here, but I really have a hard time multitasking. So once you start talking, I'll share the link. But in that podcast, we talked about my personal experience and how I've been an educator for years, and I know everything about developmental appropriate practices. I read the book, but I never connected the dots of developmentally appropriate practices to the things that they were teaching me and have me do when I became an educator, because it's a complete different hat. Like I went up to the world becoming a teacher, and it was time to sit crisscross applesauce and transitions and ring the bell and the centers, because that's how it looked like. And we didn't know anything different, and we all did it. And as I was reading your email, we all caught the different templates and we did the bulletin boards. And it's not about the judgment here. It's about that aha moment, which I had when I had my own children, of what am I doing wrong? This does not make sense. It does not add up. And that's how I started homeschooling in my garage, hopefully become a school at some point. And I talked to Kristen about the fact that play does not end. And I am brave enough to take over play in the elementary school years because we tend to only focus on the elementary years. But I think that play evolves with age until high school, and that every single learner and human being learns better through play. So
Yeah.
I also want us to really rethink the message, because play should not end by kindergarten. It
Mm-mm.
evolves with time and with age. You're completely right also about the trend, because we want this trend to be permanent, and
Yes.
we want children to play more and to learn through play. Actually, I don't know if you're familiarized with Harvard's playful learning research.
A
Uh,
little bit, yes. I am a little bit. I haven't read through word for word everything, but have looked at like debriefs of some of it.
okay, so that's also a great resource that I'm going to recommend here, and I'll send you in the chat
Yes.
in a bit, because they Project Zero did a huge research about how we are not crazy and we're not coming up with just ideas, and it actually proves that play is necessary. Of course, through in elementary ages, play looks a little different, of course, because children change, their interests are different, but it's so much needed. Kristen, why did you finish? Why did you end your cycle with the school? What were you looking for? And by the way, that school was amazing. I followed. I think that I actually discovered you through that
Oh, really?
school.
Oh, funny. Yeah. So the school that I founded is called Butterfly Hill Nature Preschool. I founded it in 2014. I think 2012 is when I decided I was going all in with it. And it took me about a year and a half to get it up and going. I was the director and one of the lead teachers for 8 years, and COVID hit. And I knew in my heart that the stage is where I belong. Like, I love being on stage. I love talking to people. I love sharing information with people. I have a passion and a fire for it. And I have an ability to motivate and inspire people. And so I think it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years into my being at the preschool, one of the lead teachers came to me, and she loved to follow a woman named Glennon Doyle Melton. So she's an amazing woman. She's a speaker. She has a podcast. She became well known through her blog, which was called Momastery. Anyway, she spoke on stages, and she's got a huge following, and people listen to her. And so Julie, my one of my lead teachers at the time, came to me and she goes, "You are going to be the Glennon of early childhood someday. Like, you are going to be on stages speaking, and that's what you're going to be doing for a living." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And so COVID hit, and I just kind of like went all in on Instagram because I had time. And things just started snowballing from there. It opened up a lot of opportunities for me to go and speak in different places. And then I ended up like being able to quit my job and hand it over. It's a nonprofit. So we just I didn't sell the business or anything. It's still up and going. It's run by a board of directors. So I handed over the reins to Julie, that same gal, and she's the director now. And now my full-time job is teaching other people all about play all around the world. And I love it. And I feel like one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to be able to do this is because I want to share the message of play with so many more people, not just locally in my own community, but globally. And so I miss working with the children. I miss being in those spaces. I go back and visit. I get to go visit on Thursday this week, or Friday. I'm going Friday morning. But I know that my work is reaching so many more people in this capacity. So
I totally agree. And that's kind of the reason why I also started creating all my courses, which it has been super funny, because I started creating both in English and Spanish.
yeah.
But all of a sudden, only the Spanish content started selling, and I'm like, this is weird. But so I'm addressing the Spanish population as well, but I keep going with both
Yeah.
audience, because it's a message that we have to continue spreading. And I think that in the 21st century we should collaborate like we do, and there's a great generation of professionals that like to work together, and that all together we're making a big impact. I have a question here from Terry, and I'm going to show it here. And it says, how to get parents understand. And I think that you have something for this. Do you have a course?
Yes. Okay, so like this is one of the number one questions I get is, how do I get other people to understand? All of the people that are on the outside of the room, how do I get them to like drink the play Kool-Aid? How do I get them to understand? And so I did a lot of learning around this. I did a lot of learning around the psychology of change and how to get people to change. And the real, true, honest answer is you can't get people to change unless they're ready to change. Mm-hmm. You can, however, model, and you can serve them up information in small bite-sized pieces. So I did a little bit more learning on like what's the best way to give people information about something that you want them to learn without them knowing that like, hey, this is what I'm trying to teach you, and this is what I want you to do, and this is what I want you to get on board with. How do we do that in a way that is not threatening to the other person? Because there's also psychology around like, if you go hard at somebody with information and be like, this play, this is play, this is play, this is how we do it, no other way is right, like we need to do it this way, people will get on their guard and they will go the opposite direction. Like it is just like human nature. And so we have to do it delicately, lead with curiosity, and kind of like tippy toe in. So I actually created a whole entire year of information for childcare providers, early childhood educators, to serve up bite-sized pieces based on one topic a month. So I've learned that if you focus on one topic, so like let's say we want parent / at-home caregivers / guardians. I don't ever use just the term parents because sometimes it's an at-home caregiver, sometimes it's a grandparent. I use at-home caregivers. If we want the at-home caregivers to learn about, let's say, math and how children learn math through play, we're going to give them all of the information on just math in play for a full month. So we give them little bite-sized pieces. We send them a newsletter with like little tidbits about how children, with a picture of children learning different math concepts through play. Maybe you can see a child that did some patterning. So you can put that in the newsletter and say, when children play, they are learning these things. This is how this child developed some pattern sense when they were playing with these magnetiles or whatever it is. So there's a newsletter, there's a training for
but is this in your website? I'm trying to
so it's Play Provisions Club, it's called. So if you go to my courses,
I got it.
Yeah, that's where it's at. So you can actually buy 1 month. So you can buy a month with all of the resources for math and play. You get a training, you get a research digest. That's the best part. So like I had somebody pull together all of the research about some really good research about math and play and how children learn math through play. And then they took little chunks out of that of like quotes from the research so that you can give that to parents, put that on social media and then link to the actual research article. So all that's there, along with professional development for the staff in the room about how children learn math through play. And it's 12 topics of that. So you can either buy like one topic or you can buy them all for a full year. You're set to go. You have all the information you need to get parents on board.
And I think that also connecting to our history, because if we go back in time, that's where I come in also with my screen-free idea of how screens are also killing play. Back in our days, we used to go from school to home to play and play outside, and there was like very rarely we watch TV, or it was a show that began and ended at some point. and that we didn't have immediate access
Yeah,
right
you didn't have
now.
unlimited. Yeah.
So our childhood is different to today's children's childhood today, because children go from school where there's no play to home where there's no play. So I think that our job should also go beyond the walls of a school, because
Yeah,
children are
absolutely.
play is vanishing not only in the educational system but at home as well. So resonating with our history and our story and how we grew up and how we have all these memories about childhood is also a powerful tool, connecting to these valuable moments in which we remember playing. Is a great way to start. I love this resource. I didn't know about this one. I heard you talk about this one, but not exactly with the entire description. I think this
Yeah,
is great.
super helpful.
And I also want people who are listening to know that, at least on my end, all the things that I create take a lot of work, and they take time from our children, and they take time from our classroom, and it is hard to get this
Yeah.
all out here. And I think it's our contribution to the system, to the world, and to make the world change
Absolutely.
overall.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that link. I appreciate that.
I have this other question here.
What is the best way to get staff on board with being even more relaxed than we are? So we have, maybe they have the mentality of like, it's just a free for all. I think that would, a really great way that a really great way that I helped my staff when I was teaching to really understand the learning that's taking place through play is to make it visible. So we went through this deep dive of documentation. So I had the teachers taking photos and little videos throughout the day. And then I gave the teachers like 15 minutes every single day to go and document learning. So they would take those photos, and then I would make them take our Minnesota Early Childhood Indicators of Progress, which are our benchmarks for early childhood education in Minnesota. And I would make them connect the standards to those photos and those videos, and then send that off to the parents or the at-home caregivers. And we did that every single day for a full school year. And when we did that, it really woke people up to being able to be play detectives and see the play that is actually, like, the learning that is actually happening through play. Because if you aren't observing and you're just sitting back and just letting children, do whatever, children are still learning. However, it's so much more intentional, the experiences that you can give the children when you sit back and you observe, and then you connect the learning that's happening to like your state standards, the learning that's happening through play. So I would say do like a deep dive on documentation, make documentation panels about certain areas of the room that the children are really engaged in. Modeling is like the best thing that you can do in those situations is model, because again, you can't change somebody's mind. And a lot of times if you're kind of on that even playing field where you're all teachers together, and some teachers are way relaxed and just kind of like sitting back and not observing and not really like pushing the envelope forward and being those facilitators of play, they might start to get like, if you're trying to teach them, they might be like, well, who are you to teach me? And they're going to go the opposite direction. So I would say model, and also like do some documentation so they can see it. And I think once people start documenting, they realize that play is like so magical. And like once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. And it's like this whole new world of like, whoa, look at what these children are learning while they're doing this. And it becomes like awe-inspiring almost.
And I also think that we have this load that the system adds to us, and that we add to ourselves, of we have to perform, we have to cover the standards, we have to cover the skills. And we don't realize that we can cover the standards and we can cover the skills if we plan for meaningful play experiences that will reunite all these concepts. I think that we tend to just cover thing by thing, like check your boxes, because that's how we learned, that we get so nervous and there's so much pressure behind our shoulders coming from the school system that I also understand teachers, but it can be done. I think that there's a great load of professionals out here, you, me, that are sharing lots of constant feedback for free. These events are free.
Yeah.
People can actually get started. I have a lot of good questions here, Kristen. So I have this one, and I would love to answer this one. This one says, what does play look like in middle school and high school? And I love this because in my perfect world, we're going to dream how it would look like. And this is how I hope it looks like for my children when they get there. I see a lot of interests being met, because I think that by middle school and high school, you already know what you want. But why stop art? Why stop tinkering? Why stop board games? Why stop challenges? Why stop, like nowadays they love video editing. Let's teach them how to do fun stuff with all these things. Can you imagine that? I mean, if I ask all of you right now, all of you who are listening and watching, how do you like to play? That same answer would apply to that middle schooler and high schooler. But we are so immersed in all these academics that academics are really important, but it could be taught as projects, as experiences that you will remember. Like if I ask you, Kristen, what do you remember about fourth grade? You're probably going to tell me about that one teacher that did that one hands-on activity that you will never forget. So
Absolutely.
I think that we know how play looks like. We just pretend not to know. And as just the cherry on top, limiting that screen time and social media is crucial for this play to happen.
Absolutely. Can I add in on this question a little?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so there is an amazing high school in St. Paul, Minnesota called Avalon High School, and I'm sure there's plenty of them around the world, but this is just the one that I've been to visit. It's middle school and high school, but it's project-based learning school. And so when I went to visit, each child or teenager has like a mentor teacher, like a pod teacher kind of a thing. And each student also has all of their standards that they need to meet, kind of like printed off in a big binder. And it's kind of made into like checklist form. So they work on these like 6-week long projects. So they like pick up something that they want to learn how to do, or a topic that they want to do a deep dive in. So when I was there was a gal making a pop-up book. She wanted to learn how to fold and like do the paper to make an actual like pop-up book. And it was like the most intricate, beautiful pop-up book that I have ever seen. She made it from scratch, and she spent 6 weeks making this. And they would meet like every few days with their mentor teacher to discuss to line up all of the things that she was learning with those standards. And then they would just like kind of like check off the standards that she was meeting by doing this pop-up book. So there was another kid who was making a skateboard from scratch in the shop. That was his project. There was another kid who was on his way. He came to get a pass from the mentor teacher because he was doing an automotive project and was working with a local auto body shop to do this project that he was doing on an old car. So that's play-based. That's play-based learning right there, because they're choosing what they're learning and what their project is on in those spaces. So that's what play looks like in middle school and high schools, choosing what you want to learn about.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's how play looks like in life.
Mm-hmm. It does. I wouldn't be here without play. Like learning about play was play for me.
Your manicure, and that's play to me.
Yeah, I just got that done today. So cute.
All right, before I answer a couple of questions, what would be like your top 3 points or advice to get started with play-based learning? Because there's so much information. but where to start, what to do. And I know that you have courses, I have courses. There's a lot of people who have resources, and I honestly recommend them all because I've taken them all because we all come from a different perspective, and
Yeah.
it adds so much value to learn from all. So tell me, what are those three things? And also give me a brief overview of what you have to offer, because you have the camp play and you also have like many things.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the top would be let go of control. Figure out how to let go of control. I think that is what is so apparent in so many early childhood classrooms is the teacher wants control over those little children at all times. So learn to let go of some control. Okay. That's the first. The second thing is, and it kind of goes along with the first, is like, don't be afraid of mess. Play can be loud. Play can be quiet. Play can be messy all over the floor. Play can be very organized. Play can be wet. It can be dirty. It can be muddy. Play can be painty, but play can also be like sitting down at a table if a child chooses that. So there's just play looks so different to every person. So let go of control, be open to mess or no mess at all. And then I would say be open to unlearning. Be open to reflection, because you have to do a lot of reflection on your own stuff in order to really give children that environment of play. I mean, there's so much more. And that's just what I thought of on a whim. One of the things that I just actually created a coupon code for everybody. If you want to learn more about play, I have all things play-based learning in my play-based learning masterclass. It's called Camp Play for the next 48 hours. If you use the code 147OFF of my Camp Play program, you get $147 off, and it is all things play-based learning in one spot. So you don't have to go to like a million different places and pull information from like a whole bunch of things. You can get started right in one spot. It's like 35 videos. You get my parent handbook that I made for my program. It's Camp Play. Yep. So it's just KristenRBPeterson.com/Camp Play.
There you go.
Yeah. So 147 off. And you get $147 off, but it's only for 48 hours. Little flash sale for y'all.
I am multitasking here.
You are. I know. You're so good at this. I'm like taking lessons. I'm like, I like this StreamYard.
Going back and forth, but I like this platform because we can give a lot of value and information to all the people who are listening. Let's see, what else do we have here? I have a good one here. Let's see what you have to say about this one.
At the school that I work at, I've been starting to move towards a play-based, but especially at the kindergarten level, they keep pushing the academic learning worksheets. Okay, how do you
show that play-based? Because there's another one here.
Oh, is the learning and enough and magical? Documentation is going to be the best way to show anybody outside the room that play is learning and play is magical. So taking photos and videos of children in play and then connecting those things to the things that they're actually learning. So connecting them to your state standards and making that visible to the people on the outside of the room, whether it's through Instagram or a closed Facebook group or through all of those apps that people use to show people what's happening inside the classroom or inside the program. I would say documentation is going to be your best friend to be able to like show other people what children are learning.
Check this one out.
My daughter wants to be an educator. However, she wants to learn to teach not from the traditional methods, but from this style. What would you recommend she study?
Very hard. Very hard, because we cannot not recommend going to an undergraduate program, but we have to really do your research to find the right fit.
Yeah, you do. There are programs. So here's what I would do. Connect with, there's a woman named Heather Burnt Santee. She is that early childhood nerd. She teaches at the college level, and she teaches about play. I know she uses some of my resources in her class. She would maybe have a good answer for you.
What's her name?
Heather Bernt, BERNT /Santy, SANTY. And she's a podcaster. She has a amazing podcast that like she's been doing for like 8 years. It's called That Early Childhood Nerd.
Okay,
she's on Instagram as That Early Childhood Nerd. I would say send her that question. She would probably be able to better answer that than I could. Yeah. I went traditional. I had traditional. I didn't find play until after I was already out of school.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know what colleges out there. I don't know what colleges out there will teach play, like fully play. So there might be some like in other countries. And there might be college programs out there that are geared mostly towards play. But there's also a lot of play therapists out there who learn a lot about play for being a play therapist. I know I've been I'll walk through the airport sometimes with my big, huge suitcase and it has the like play written on it in huge letters. And I've had play therapists come up to me and go, "Are you a play therapist?" No, I'm a play advocate. I teach about play.
I think that if you read all the books out there on play, if you take all the courses of professionals who are writing them, I think that we all have good educational backgrounds that support what we do. And I think that it's valuable to take all the different angles and learn from all different people, because that's what will make your own definition be born. I have here more questions about, let's see. This one, we kind of already answered this one.
How do we shift our lens and advocate to close the traditional gap in K-12? So I think advocacy, a lot of people think advocacy means like, I'm going to go to the Capitol and I'm going to stand on the steps of the White House and I'm going to throw signs in the air and like go speak at Congress. Like, ew, that scares the bejeebies out of me. I am a play advocate, but I don't do that. So I am a play advocate in that I teach others about play. I do things like this so that I can be visible and teach other people about play. I share other people's information about play on my social media. I collaborate with other people who are play-based people to spread the word about play. So advocacy can be sending a newsletter home to parents that has information about play. Play advocacy can be sharing a research article to like the parents of your program or to your social media audience. Like, hey, have you read this? Like, look at this. Like, this is cool. Or like a well-known article. I know The Atlantic has some different articles about free play and why it's so important. So like sharing the information with other people is being an advocate. So you can advocate that way. If you feel confident, go to your school board meetings and stand up and talk about why it's important to do things that we're interested in and that it's intrinsically motivated versus like sitting down and doing worksheets.
I agree. And I think that I always tell these stories when I speak. I mainly do speak it in Spanish. But when I speak in either language, I always tell people that it takes courage, and we might not change education 100%, but we have already changed lives. We've already changed homes, and that little impact will multiply. And if we just sit down and wait for that change to come to you, it will never come. So we all are agents of change, and it depends how we look around in the environment and choose what battles we want to fight for. As parents, as educators, as administrators, we all have a way to rethink education. Education needs to change. It is changing very slowly. And I think the other day I read something that said that if we cannot change the system, let's make a new one. And I totally agree. We can fight for something different. I just spoke in Costa Rica for the public system, and I spoke to 500 educators that are very rigid, that have been always thinking the same way, and the public school system is not like the public school system here in the States. It has less resources and it's tough. And I was brave enough to face
Good.
that audience. And I think that way we get all these people thinking about this other way. If we just have people rethink their practices and come up with one thing they want to improve, we've won the race. So personally, I want to thank you for all you do, all what you do. Your resources are great. And I always tell you that I really admire you and your courage and how you've come together, especially with your personal challenges over the last couple of years. And I think that you're a true educator, and that you have passion for what you do, and that's what actually takes change to be a reality. So thank you so much, Kristen, for sharing your time. I hope that we continue to collaborate in many different spaces and opportunities. And I want to thank also the people who took their time. We could not answer all the questions, and we're tight on time, and I know that you are tight on time. But you can send a private message to Kristen, to myself. Check out our websites. I sent you all the information on the chat.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you want to add something else.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram. That's where you're going to follow me. If you don't already, it's at kristen.rb.peterson. Check out my podcast. It's the Play-Based Learning Podcast.
Let me send it here. I already sent the podcast. Let me send the...
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Mariana.
Thank you. And I love how you roll your R's.
I really do want to learn Spanish. So, someday one of my goals is to, when my kids are all graduated, is to not be bound to one location, and I want to travel the world. And I think learning Spanish would be a really, really great thing to do. I did take 5 years of Spanish, but if you don't use it, you don't keep it. So
I know. I'm currently living in Florida, but you know that if you ever want to come down to Costa Rica, I'll take you. We should all actually come up with something related to play as an excuse down there, and we will just get some trouble.
Yeah, we should. Let's go do a playcation down there, and you can do your part in Spanish and I'll do mine in English.
I love it.
I love that. Aw, well,
right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you so much to all of you who were listening.
Yes.